welcome back to Pommy and Oz. I hope we're all doing well. If you are new around here, please drop a like, please drop a subscribe. It does mean the world to me. We're encroaching 800, which is absolutely phenomenal considering we started about this time last year, which is a fair effort from all you guys and girls. I really do appreciate it. So, you can see a bit of a smiley upon today. Obviously, my team got up yesterday. Arvo, 45-point win. It was a tasty win, wasn't it, nonetheless? I thought let's just digest into it. A few of you have asked the thoughts, and we know that even though I cover all the IFL, Carlton are probably closer to my heart than everyone else. I mean, for me, and I think these are some of the most telling statistics from the game. It took Carlton until the halfway through the third to match the tackles in any other game this year, with more possession, which is a telling stat because obviously if you have the ball, you don't have to tackle. That showed to me a heck of a lot more intent, a lot more vigour. There was a lot more closing down the space as well. One thing that I really did notice was players looked like they were a lot more intent, particularly the first quarter as well. It was a little bit sloppy, but I can take that on the chin with your disposal and stuff because it looked like they were trying so hard. There was a real from the off sense that this was a chance to redeem themselves. On the whole, I think they really did. I thought what really impressed me the most was the transition success rate at Fremantle was 10%. It was 11% for the game. And it's been 48% their transition from defence into attack that result in a scoring shot, which is huge. It really is a huge statistic that to show how much the pressure was applied. And -5, it wasn't much of a different side against the side that comfortably put away GWS. So for me, it shows that the intensity was there, they attacked a lot harder, and they attacked off the ball harder. It only took them 10 minutes into the third to have more pressure acts as well than any other game, which is absolutely huge when you think in the grand scheme of things. Okay, it's Fremantle, and I know a lot has been made up that they were weak and stuff. That's fair enough, but you can only beat what's in front of you. And a response, no matter who it's against, for me, is very integral into moving forward. Now, it's the building blocks because you look at our next patches of games, they're kind of tasty. Gold Coast is a really impressive one for me to look at for Carlton on the whole. On the whole, I think it's a very intriguing contest for Carlton because if you actually look at the intricacies of it, it's a very similar makeup inside to Fremantle. Fremantle, they averaged across theirs, they had 70.6 games played on average, 78.3 for Gold Coast. The age profile is almost identical as well, 24 years 10 months, 24.6, and the average height across the board is just a centimetre higher, 187. I think what is more important is if you actually break it down into the metrics based on both teams playing. They're very similar, less than 50 gamers. Carlton have 7 out on show, Gold Coast had 9. 50 to 99 games, 7 for Gold Coast, 4 for Carlton. 100 to 149, 4 for Gold Coast, 7 for Carlton. And 150 or more, 4 for us, 3 for them. And it's very similar in numbers, because it's identical in numbers, apart from the less than 50 for Fremantle. They had 10, Gold Coast had 9, and that one extra comes in their 150 gamers or more. So it's a very important one because I look at them batch of games. Gold Coast for me is the second stepping stone. Can they back it up again? I think they can because I think there was an air of a bit like the Essendon game this week with Carlton. They started to enjoy it. Once that system worked, they saw blood. It started to just kind of cotton into another game where it was everyone wanted to be a part of it. It's an infectious feeling when it's going well. Gold Coast presents that next step, building for Port, Brisbane, and then Essendon. And for me, it's stepping stones. We want to really cement this. There was a lot of good little tales as well for Carlton. I thought that Carlton's second quarter, particularly, and its third, it really started to hit the straps. In the first, the conversion from efficiencies inside 50 was 37.5%. That went up to 66.7 in the third, and finally plateaued out at 60. Now that is the magical number, 60. If you can stay 60% conversion for scoring efficiency, you're in a happy place, particularly with the way that we do get inside 50 so easily. That is one of the avenues of Teague's game plan that traditionally has been very high for us. And that makes me excited moving forward, that them statistics are showing us, as it stands, if they can replicate that, it's really good. There's a few important things as well of this week. One of them, let's talk about him, Sam Walsh. Sam Walsh attained his career high in disposals, his career high in goal assists, his career high in inside 50s, his career high inside 50s that resulted in scoring shots. It now moves him for 2021 to top 3 disposal getter per game on average, top 2 in effective disposals. That is huge for Carlton Football Club there, because that is one of the things that was a question mark about his efficiency last year, and I'll tell you why it's improved and why we're seeing a huge improvement in his game. It's his kick to handball ratios. Traditionally, Sam Walsh throughout his career has been a kick first footballer. Now he's starting to create links in the chain. We're seeing a development of his game now right in the 3rd year, and that is the happy medium. And what that is enabling him to do is be active for longer. You're seeing a lot of 1-2 punches from him. You're seeing a lot of releasing on the outside. That is a testament to Teague's game plan, because that is very heavy. I said this last year and I'll say it again. It's not a kick-heavy game style. The way he wants to play is move it quickly. It takes confidence to handball in traffic, and Sam Walsh is one that is really getting into that situation. And that, for me, is absolutely huge moving forward for him. He was absolutely dynamite. He was unstoppable. He was in everything that was positive for Carlton Football Club. And I think moving forward for us, we've got one hell of a player in there, as we know. But what we have got there, which I think is exceptionally exciting for us, is a player that can change the game. He reminds me at the moment of where he's going of a very Judd type footballer. He can play in and under, but once he gets the ball in space, he's going to damage you. He, for me, without a shadow of a doubt, is the best footballer to come from that draft. And without a doubt, the best footballer in the country under 21. I know people will talk about Matt Rowell. He's not Walsh. Walsh, for me, is another level, another layer. And that is very exciting. Another player we've got to look at, and this is really important for our club. We talked about responding. And I want to say this. There's a lot of people going out there saying, oh, where are all the haters now? It's the most ridiculous thing to be like that, right? You're either a positive person, you're either a negative person, or you're either a realist. But being positive all the time doesn't promote results. That is psychiatric fact. That is a psychology fact right there and then, that you can't be positive all the time. And to suggest you can't be, it's stupid, because Teague himself, our coach, said, I went off at them, and he's got the response. So if you want to know what's the right way to be, Teague's just shown you it. And a guy that is the symbol of that, who is the poster boy of that, is Mr. Patrick Cripps. You look at your captain to lead and inspire. And what he did this week was a pure captain's game. And one thing I noticed about Cripps is he didn't stop moving. If you actually look at his heat map as well, it is glowing red all over the place. He really set the standard, particularly in the first half. What really impressed me about Cripper was he was up and at him. He was there. He was there to play. When he kicked that goal as well, there was none of this finger twirl. It was a proper roar of emotion, and it was, come on, boys, get on my back, get with me. We're in a fight here. We're in a fight. We're in a war, and we're going to win it. And it was a phenomenal performance from Cripper. No surprise, record in disposals for this year. Kicks literally every measurement that you can measure a player in, he succeeded in. And he was phenomenal. He was brilliant. And this is what Cripper does best. We talk about the system, and I don't buy into that. What Cripper needs is, I think he needs the carrot dangled. And I think what he needs to do is grow in confidence in his leadership. And this is how he grows in confidence. Cripper's just not got to worry about talking to players, motivating them. Just do what you do, son. Because when you do what you do, you kill it. Back in the top for total clearances, all the measurements, and also smashing the hell out of Brayshaw was a real sight. That's what we want to see our best players do. We want to see them up and physical, particularly Cripper. That is what he's known for. Another guy as well, we'll talk about leaders, was none other than Sam Dock. Again, Very accomplished performance from Doc. I really enjoyed his game this week. It was a lot smarter this week, I thought, from him. And what we're seeing from him is we're seeing just where it is with him. It was a very accomplished performance in the way of intercept marks. It was his most marks he's got since Hawthorn 2017 as well, which is huge. Huge. That's where he does well, where he's controlling the game plan, controlling the play. Again as well, Ed Kerner, another guy as well that really did impress me. It was the senior players that, for me, why they're there is to give something a standard makers. Don't have to be the best on ground, but get your shit together. And I was very impressed. A guy that he's really personifying that. Lachlan Fogarty, absolute brilliant performance from him. 25 touches, 7 tackles, and literally set career highs all game. Most disposals he's got, most marks he's ever got. Absolutely phenomenal. Surprisingly, not the most tackles he's got, but that was Port Adelaide 2018. But it was, again, another standard raised. He was always hungry, always looking to get it, and he is one hell of a pickup. And these kind of players really, for me, are bringing it out. I really enjoyed as well Gibbons' game going back. He started to play a bit deeper, acting as the intermediary between midfield and forward line. Very impressive stuff from him. 24 touches, the most since 2000 against Essendon for him. An absolute phenomenal show. Also, his marks around the ground, 8. That's the most he's ever got. Again, another career game. And when we look at teams that go up a level, you look at that. You look at that. Are they having career games? And he is having a career game. Who I do want to talk about is none other than Lockie Plowman. Lockie Plowman, phenomenal. Now, I was hard on him last week, and you know, with me, with Plowman, it's majority love. I'm a big fan of him. And last week, he'd let me down. But today, returned to form. And it's so important. And I want to talk a little bit about Lockie Plowman because I'm a big fan. Most marks and most intercept marks in his career, and the most marks. Phenomenal work from him. Top 15 now in intercepts in the country, which is a huge thing. And I think what we see with Lockie Plowman is, take body language aside, let's just talk what we can analyse. And that's we don't know what's on in his mind, but how he plays. And I think when you look at it, when it's a structural system like that, the zone worked really well. But more importantly, the midfield pressure was there. When the midfield pressure isn't there, midfielders get a chance to have a bit of space, measure their kicks. Forwards get a chance to really activate that lead. And you look at the games where he has suffered, that is a problem for me. That is where it goes wrong. But genuinely, if this game plan plays the way it should, Plowman is, in my opinion, top 20 defenders in the comp. And that is without a shadow of a doubt for what he does. If he's going to be isolated, he's going to be exposed. But what he does very well is he works in them tight situations incredibly well. It's tough to beat someone one-on-one. It really is as a defender when you're isolated. And you watch the Collingwood game. I watched it back after this game, Fremantle. He's so isolated because the pressure is so weak from the midfield. Stellar game from him. And I was really, really impressed by what he brought. Very assured. Another defender as well that he's probably needs to be in there. Top 3 now for intercepts is Liam Jones. An absolute phenomenal performance. He found a lot of the ball as well. 20. I really enjoyed how he looked to kind of myriad Tom Stewart at Geelong. Looking to intercept and quickly give it off. Some of them kicks were impeccable. Top 10 now as well, tied for 1%ers in the game. He does the tough stuff. He gets the intercepts. He's an absolute gun, and it was a very impressive performance for him. And to get his career-high disposals, he deserves a mention, and it worked well. Another guy that really impressed me down the back that helps complement Plowman's game is SPS. A guy that went at 95% disposal efficiency, 20 of them touches, and that is what Teague is on about when they ask why he plays in the defence. And there it is. It's when that pressure's good, you see the defence work a little bit better when they're not under constant cosh. And I don't just mean pressure as in tackles and 1%ers and all that. It's actually been in the vicinity of players, and I saw that when they came to do their forward press, they were always manned up by a Carlton player. There wasn't anyone loose, there was bumps and shepherding happen. It's them things that aren't measured as well that really improved this week. You're off the ball positioning, and SPS is someone that gets a bit of space and you can buy him a bit of time, and more importantly, he's confident he has that time. That is where you see a huge improvement in his game. Another guy that really did impress me this week as well was Zach Williams. It wasn't his greatest performance, but already in 2021, top 20 for clearances, top 15 for centre clearances, top 20 for inside 50s, top 10 for inside 50 to scoring opportunities, top 5 for clearances on average per game, and top 3 for stoppage clearances. Absolute jet. And when you look at the measurements of what wins you football matches, stoppage clearances and metres gained are two very important factors. And he is an absolute dynamo at that. That's a specialist. We've got a specialist centre clearance player in your Ed Kernos and your Crippers. We've never had a stoppage clearance guy as good as Zach Williams. This is what he does very well. Invariably stoppage clearances as well. A lot more traffic, a lot more difficult to do. He absolutely excels at it. A guy that really personifies our pressure as well. And again, career high numbers coming from him. Jack Silvani found a lot of the ball. His pressure was really up there as well. And this is where, on that half-forward line, it helps the midfield out. If the tackles and the pressure's coming, the ball's not as good from defence to midfield. If the pressure's coming from the midfield, the ball isn't good from midfield to attack. It's all domino effect, and Jesus personifies that. I do want to talk about Harry, and I want to talk about Eddie in the same sentence. Very impressive game for him. Career high, obviously 7 goals, we know. Was brilliant. Top now the leading forward in score involvements in top 5, top 3 goals per game, but the leading one in marks inside 50. Bearing in mind that we've had 2 horrendous games efficiency-wise inside 50, it's a huge credit to his craft. And I think he had this good game not because of anything else other than Eddie Betts. His leading patterns act as decoys. And that is where Levi Casbolt, for me, we need to look at. He is really struggling this year, and his numbers are telling us this was his best game statistically for Carlton this year. And when you're playing as the second tall for Levi, it has to be, if you're not scoring, you're creating opportunities, and he's not bringing it to deck, and he's not leading very well. You can see at times in the footage this week as well, if you go back and watch it, he was dual tagged Mackay because they knew Levi wasn't going to be of use. That is now where a question comes in. Is it Oscar McDonald or is it McGovern? But for me, if the axe is going to swing on anyone this week, it would have to swing on Levi, because that is going to be an issue when you play the better defences, particularly Port and Brisbane, that have high success rates at containing dangerous talls. That makes it a problem, because we saw it against Collingwood. Once he's duelled, it's very hard for Harry, because he works incredibly hard, but it doesn't matter how good you are, it's tough when you've been duelled. When you've been duelled by someone, it's tough. But Harry, absolutely impeccable. Really getting there's a bit of Tom Hawkins about the feel from last year for him. He's bringing players in as well. And that is dangerous, because once he gets up and about, Carlton are going to be really, really in a good place. Another guy that really did set up the win as well, Mark Peternet for me. Again, top 15 in stoppage clearances. He does his own work, and hit-outs per game top 5, and hit-outs to advantage top 5. He goes about his business very quietly for me, and that is a big thing. He just gets it done. You don't notice him. But if you're not noticing a top 5 ruckman in the competition, statistically at the moment for key metrics, we're in a good little position, because you've got to remember when that'll get a bit better when TDK comes back, because I wouldn't be surprised to see Carlton oscillate with a dual ruckman type scenario for some games. I was very impressed as well. Let's talk about Wheaters. Top 10 in the comp for rebounds, top 10 in the comp for exits out of defensive 50 that hit targets, top 1 in the comp for 1%ers per game. Absolute phenomenal. He does the hard stuff and he locks people down. This will be a confidence boosting game for him as well for me. Very, very confidence boosting, because he's just going to get better from here. He was a little bit quiet the last 2 games. He's been good, but he's not been mercurial. That was a confidence booster. He got his hands on the pill a lot, did his stuff. The confidence will be high. Now let's talk about some of the babies of the group. Let's talk about Matty Cottrell first. Late in inclusion. And it's interesting, this guy's eligible for the Rising Star, but now he is top 2 for Rising Stars in 1%ers, top 5 in stoppage clearances, and top 10 for tackles per game. Very good work, very good, accomplished 3 tackles. And for me, he's a guy that, if it's not Lockie O'Brien, it has to be Cottrell. With what this game showed is a two-way runner on the wing is integral. And although he didn't get a lot of the ball, he did set his career high though, 14. That is quite high for a natural wingman. You've got to remember that. And what excites me about Cottrell is he does his job. He works hard up and down the ground and both ways. And for me, he's definitely in the conversation. We need a natural wingman. It allowed us to have width. You saw that as opposed to when we play Setterfield there and stuff and they start to naturally gravitate towards the centre of the ground, it leaves an area of unoccupied space that either they can use to their advantage to attack, or they can use to pull players from the wing to really congest the midfield and create outlet balls. Very impressed by Cottrell. He's very understated. Some things aren't measured in stats, and I was really impressed by his game. But Luke Parks, my boy, we talked about him a lot. 13 touches, 3 marks. Very impressive little footballer for me, and I enjoyed it. Real good with the rebound 50s. There was a few mistakes here and there, but one important one is the meters gained. Absolutely huge. We talk about this metric. This metric is the only one statistically in the last decade since it's been kept that tells us who wins games. That tells us what teams are good. 6,427 metres gained the whole team had. And what is even more impressive for me, this gentleman attributes 382. He's a real direct footballer, and for me, he's just cemented a 5-game spurt at this football club. I love what he does. He stays hard, stays tight, and then he attacks the ball. He's a very dynamic footballer, and he's something that we don't have in the back line. And I think the makeup of the back 6 this week is absolutely perfect, and it's the best it's been ever. I'm really excited about that, and I'm really excited against Gold Coast, a side that plays on a lot of energy and a lot of will and determination and a lot of pressure early doors, how he will go there. But I was really impressed with his game. I really enjoyed it. And before we wrap up, I want to talk about two guys that have been much maligned. I thought Mark Murphy's interim work was very good. I still, when I look at him, they'll see that he's slowing down massively. And for me, what I'd like Carlton to do, and I'd love to hear your guys and girls' thoughts about it, I'd like to see that the over 30s have kind of a little bit of pressure on them, that if they're the first to go out for a new young kid. I was impressed with his game, and I'm not saying he had a bad game, but we need this every week from Mark. This has to be the bare minimum, because for me, the over 30 is going to be in there. They've got to be doing something that a young kid can. And that role at the moment, that interim at half forward, if you look at how Carlton played, especially Mickey Gibbons, it's not a dire essential role, because Jesus and Gibbons complement the forward line. This here could be someone learning their trade. I was very impressed though. He offers a bit of reliability. There wasn't as much pressure applied, and that is one of my concerns with Mark Murphy in the last couple of games. When there is pressure, this coolness has gone, and that is what he's there for as an over 30. This is old hat to him. Decent game from him. I want to see a bit more from him though. I really want to see that be the conduit there, because we saw Reddy Betts. He had the marvellous goal, but also he measured the game off the stat track. His ability to read, his ability to divert, and his ability to decoy is really important. And Mark Murphy needs to bring some of that a bit more for me. Dowie's a guy that I want to talk about him just briefly. He was playing on the wing. You look at his heat map the last 2 games, he's really lived on the wing. He hasn't been as close into the ball and into the contest as we saw against Richmond. And I think that's a measured thing by Teague, because obviously when you look at Walsh, we moved him out onto the wing last year for a large passage and he suddenly got better. He does need to find the ball though. One thing with Dow though is, I ask you this, if he's going to play on the wing, you wouldn't play Stocker there. And if you watch Liam Stocker play, you'll know the answers why. Because his natural ability is to be up and about and around the contest. So for me, when Stocker comes in, you're bringing him in to do that role. To do at least 20-30% on the ball and act as a stopper kind of. You want him to play the Ed Kerno role. And I look and think, who can be there? at the moment playing that role. And if you look at his heat map, it's quite conducive. It is literally all on that right mid flank or on the half forward. So for me, if Carlton are going to do that, I'd be going back to his medium, his billing. He was a high half forward midfielder at times, and he rested on the half forward. So this may be a role that Teague might be thinking, is it somewhere that maybe I look at bringing him in as the Murphy and allowing him to have that 20 cent? Because I think he needs to be on the ball. He's got that breakaway speed. And one question mark about Dow, and this has always been his thing, is his delivery under pressure is the question. He's very good at getting the ball inside 50 when he's got a bit of time, and that's what he uses his stoppage breakaway speed for. He's got a bit of clearance, he hits targets, and we saw that this week. When he gets out in open space, he's very good at delivering the ball. When he's under a bit of cosh, it's a bit rush, it's a bit snappy. So for me, it's either find him a little bit more, but also remember what he is. He's not going to be, like people talk about Isaac Smith. Isaac Smith, you look at him as statistically being the best wingman in the competition for the last decade. And he gets over 20 possessions. Lockie Hunter's another guy that plays on the wing that people refer to. Again, he's a freak. He gets over 20 possessions. Wingmen average around that 15 to 20 mark. And he's averaging this year 14 possessions is Dow. And for me, when you look at that, it was 18 prior to that. So this was probably one of his off games based on this. But as this year's gone on, he has done more than enough to be where he is. And I think we've just got to look at, at the moment, it's a bit like SBS. He's not playing his native role. So give him time, because to me, I don't see anyone in the reses that does it. I think the only way that you could justify Dow not being in this side is Setterfield comes back and actually plays on the ball. But then the on-ball work by the four that did it this week was impeccable, with Gibbons being the pinch hitter on the ball. And I thought that dynamic was perfect. And I'd be reluctant to break that at the moment, particularly after a win, because for me, it's Gold Coast is a no-brainer. It's building towards that Brisbane and Port, because they're the sides that you need to be a finals side. Gold Coast is a no-brainer. You beat them if you're a finals side, especially before anyone says Brisbane, the beaten sides are in the finals. Yeah, but they didn't start 0-2. You've got to remember that. So Gold Coast is the one that we get over, building onto big things. All in all then, I thought it was a really good performance, and it was about the boys backing up. What really impresses me about the boys though, and what really impresses me about everything, was just the efficiency, 74%. They used the ball well, and a big one for me was the uncontested possessions. They hit space. They worked so hard for space that we had a lot of uncontested possessions. We really did find space because they worked so hard. It was a really good performance, and I'm really happy about it. I'm not getting too carried away, though, because I want to see it backed up. But if this is the start, this is a great place to be, because that pressure wins you football matches. The key fundamentals, statistically, that I can tell you are your pressure acts, your meters gained, and your efficiency inside 50. And this week, it was absolutely brilliant. You couldn't have asked for a better response. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll do a full wrap-up of the AFL week, see what's going on. I'll see you soon. Pom out.